Hello and welcome to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. It's my honor and great pleasure to be speaking with lead singer Ron Young from the band Little Caesar. How are you doing today, Ron?
I'm good, Jason. Really good.
Now, you know, Little Caesar was one of those bands from back in the 80s. You guys people were really paying attention to that debut album, and especially your cover of Riff Franklin's Chain of Fools. So talk a little bit about what that was like when the band was first starting up.
Well, we put the band together because we were a bunch of guys that didn't really care for the whole pop glam metal scene that was going on in LA.
Yeah.
And, we all rode motorcycles and we're just kind of more working class kind of guys, and that whole thing was just a little too far afield for us, both musically and visually. So, we just decided to be a real blues-based, sort of classic, rock kind of band.
Because what's funny is, I remember when that first album first came out, there was, I don't want to say it was overnight success, because you guys, like a lot of bands, it did not really come overnight, but all of a sudden, people were all of a sudden starting to pay attention to the band.
And it also didn't really get successful.
But what I was going to say is, I think there's more of an appreciation for the band now, because I was reading, kind of like what you were saying, part of the reason the band broke up, a lot of people working behind the scenes for you guys, like you said, these guys, they look like bikers or Hells Angels. They don't really have a look. But I was listening to the album you guys are getting ready to re-release, which is called This Time It's Different, which originally came out in 1998. And I got to tell you, Ron, I'm hearing this for the first time, even though it's a re-release, and to me, it's like listening to a brand new Little Caesar record. So let's talk about your guys' decision to re-release this.
Well, again, it's like we have all this stuff in the vault.
Yeah.
And, when you don't have a major label behind you, a lot of stuff just falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
And when we started working with Deco, and they're like, would you like to re-release this stuff? And we're like, yeah, we'd love to, And so they made it appetizing, because on some of the releases they put live tracks. Our live version along with it, which I thought was a cool idea. And they tweaked the sound a little bit, because a lot of those, especially on This Time It's Different, is, they're like demos and alternate takes and all this other kind of stuff that we had laying around. And we put the record out originally on Earl Slick's label when he was in the band. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have like a promotion budget or anything. Yeah. So it's just kind of one of those dusty things where you're like, well, let's dust it off and throw it back out there. So
and it seems like there's since you guys came back a couple of years ago, seems like there's more of an appreciation for you guys. I mean, you still are out there. In fact, you just posted something on your Facebook page today, which I just loved, saying not only how much you appreciate the fans coming out, to your shows, but you were like, the band, we actually get down, we break down and set up all our equipment. We get out there after the show, we talk to all the fans. We want you guys to know, we appreciate you coming out. And I think that's a really cool attitude to have, because a lot of people, they have a little bit of success, and I don't want to say it goes to their head, but, when you get to a certain level where you're playing, big time arenas, you maybe can't be able to set up the equipment in that.
It's sort of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah.
Because, it's like, Motley Crue can't respond to everybody on Facebook,
Yeah.
They get a pass for just throwing something up there and then engaging with people. But, we look at it like we're still selling this stuff door to door.
Yeah.
And, the reality is that, this isn't really a journey of commerce anymore. It's more one of the spirit. And, that sort of requires, you sitting down and deciding, well, what's really important and what's not. And, for us, I know bands that I see posts every day on social media where they had to cancel a leg of a tour because of things are just too financially unstable. And, it's the bigger you get, the more complications they are, and the more complicated it gets. Yeah. So I understand that. But, so we decided that if we really want to go do this, we got to strip everything down to the bare bones. And for us, the payoff is more the experience and the engagement with our fans. And, we don't. I mean, we could generate more revenue by doing paid meet and greets for our Uber fans.
Yeah.
We just refuse to do that kind of stuff because it's just keeping the fan base loyal and letting them know that we really, really appreciate the support all these years.
And Ron, like we were talking earlier about the fact that when the band first came out with the debut album, you guys got a little bit of attention, and that felt good. But would you say kind of the rise of the band was just as quick as the fall? When
Oh yeah. I mean, that whole thing, I knew it was going to be a train wreck from day one, and because very few bands have like this team of Jimmy Iovine as our manager, and John Kolodner is our A&R guy, and Bob Rock is our producer. And right from the start, there was all this fighting and battle of the egos.
Wow.
All the things that we wanted to preserve.
Yeah.
Like we were supposed to go in and make a really straightforward, quick, honest, blues-based hard rock record in the lines of early AC/DC or Bad Company or Lynyrd Skynyrd or some Motown records. And Bob Rock said he was up for that. And then 2 minutes later, once Dr. Feelgood goes to number one, we start making a highly produced, slick record.
Wow.
Which I told him from day one.
Yeah.
The band looks like a bunch of scumbags. If you put out this record that's really slick, especially because we do some very melodic stuff, it's only going to confuse the fans. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But you can't tell that to Jimmy Iovine and Bob Rock.
Yeah.
They're like, shut up, sit down, little boy.
Yeah,
And so it really bit us in the ass, and and again, once you hit a bump in the road, all these big time guys want to disconnect from you because they don't want a failure on their scorecard.
Yeah.
And so it's all that kind of stuff that happened, and to them it's just another project that they tried and it didn't work, so they move on to the next one. But for us, it was our careers. So.
Oh yeah, and this time it's different. Again, like to me, it's like listening to brand new Little Caesar record, and I think it's cool that you guys threw in the live stuff too, because you really are giving the fans like the whole package, just to give people an idea what we're talking about. But I love opening track Hell to Pay. I mean, it's kind of a heavy hard rock tune, and then also on the same album, you got something like Tell Me That You Love Me, and that's to me a great rock and blues tune. And then song after that is Same Old Story, great kind of what I would call like, I guess, a power ballad. So you got a little bit of everything on here for anybody that's a Little Caesar fan or ever loved the band. I think they're going to love the whole package here.
Well, cool. Yeah, and that's what we were hoping to do, because we have a really wide array of musical tastes. And, to go back to what you were saying earlier about, years on here, we have this sort of, appreciation for the band that seems to be a little bit more, or, and it's, the interesting thing is I think as people get older, you don't have like those genres that you have to be so loyal to when you're in high school.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's like if you're into hair metal, man, it's hair metal all the way. And if you say that you're into like Social Distortion or something, people would look at you like, dude, what's wrong with you? That's not the kind of music we listen to,
Whereas on the flip side, that I typically listen to hard rock and metal. I mean, I listen from everything to Aerosmith, Metallica, Megadeth. I'm a Kiss fan. Also, though, I listen to stuff like, the Eagles and Tom Petty. You know why? Great songwriting.
Exactly. Great undeniable hooks with great undeniable talent.
I mean,
if you're really a lover of music, you see the benefit and the uniqueness and the quality in all of these things. And I think, like I said, as people get older, they don't have to carry that banner so hard. And they could listen to an AC/DC record and then turn around and put on a Johnny Cash record, or whatever their taste is for whatever mood that they're in. But music is still so important to them in their day-to-day life that they find the music that suits their moods. So we've always been a band where we never broke any new ground.
No.
We were just a bunch of guys doing what we love to do, influenced by the guys that we grew up on, and we would get in the room and go, we should write like a country kind of flavored tune.
Yeah, I mean, Little Caesar.
The Eagles did it, so.
Yeah, Little Caesar. I kind of equivalent you guys to kind of Cheap Trick in the sense that was always the joke about Cheap Trick, that you had the image-wise, I'm talking about. You had the two kind of rock star looking guys, and you had
exactly, and then you flip it over, and then,
yeah.
It's funny,
Yeah, and then
like on the bicycles.
And then you look at what you guys look like. You guys look like a bunch of bikers, and then you put on an album.
Bikers.
and you might expect maybe they're going to sound like Motorhead, but then you put on a Little Caesar record, and it's really kind of bluesy rock.
Yeah, and then there's like a soul kind of ballad on there,
And it's almost like, wow, what is this? And and I think that's why. I mean, over the years, Ron, you've remained the one constant, and you're the principal songwriter. So that's why I think Little Caesar's been able to remain kind of keep that sound, because you're the one constant.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when you're not sort of married to one production style because you have to keep your fans happy that know you from the period of time that they grew up on you. We've always just tried to be a straight ahead band from a production approach as well as a songwriting approach, and that leaves it timeless. Some might say dated, but it's also timeless. So, it allows us a lot of freedom to just do what we love to do and write the kind of songs that we just enjoy as listeners in our own way. And it just keeps it fun and interesting for us.
And talk about your songwriting for a minute. To me, you're really a gifted songwriter, and I say that because I think Little Caesar at this point is one of those bands, like a lot of bands, that you could live on your catalog of music and go out there and you'd still have a decent amount of people showing up to the shows. But even like a band like Def Leppard continues to put out new music. I respect that about you guys, that you not are just living off the catalog of music.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the stuff comes in wider gaps than it used to because it's just life. But
it's still there, Bo.
We always try to keep getting some fresh stuff in there, and it's interesting because as you get further down the road here, it makes it harder for us to pick a set. Like we're about to go on tour.
That's the hardest thing, right?
We'll have like a week of arguments about and guys are pulling up Facebook posts going, see, look how many people are asking for this one and that one, and it's like, after 8 albums, it makes it really hard. And we also know that, a lot of people, they want to go and hear the songs that they already have an affinity to and it hits the ear with some familiarity. Yeah. And, we try to lace it up and put some new stuff in there, or more recent stuff, so to speak. But the reality is that most people are familiar with the first record, some in the second, but really the first, because that was where the big push was behind the band.
Oh, yeah.
The second was everything was kind of coming off the rails, but so we make sure to give people what they want, there's some bands that go, I'm tired of playing those songs. And it's like, listen, man, you wouldn't be out there on that stage if it wasn't for those songs. You got to give people what they want to hear.
Oh, sure. And this time it's different. It's being re-released, we said, on Deco Entertainment, and it's coming out August 26th. And again, what I dig about this, there are people like me hearing this for the first time, have no idea that it originally came out in 1998. And then for those people that already may have bought the album or heard it, they're like, well, why should I buy this album? Oh, well, you get, a couple new live tracks that weren't on the original. So you're giving people something a little extra. I dig that,
Yeah, there's something slightly unique and sort of special about it. And again, there's a whole lot of people that just have not, heard any of that stuff, because when it came out in 98, Earl Slick just threw it out there, and it was, kind of out there in the ether, and nobody heard about it. And, especially because there's some, like we have that song on there that's called Downtown Mama, which was,
that's another one.
On our first record, we have Down and Dirty, and it's the same song except with different lyrics, because we had a fight with John Kalodner, who didn't like the original lyrics, and so just little interesting behind the scenes things and peeks behind the curtain. We actually co-wrote that song with Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. So.
And how did that come about? That's what a cool.
But when we were working with Jimmy Iovine, he knew that the key to everything is a great song.
Yeah.
He's that old school. It's got to be a great song. And Jimmy's really into putting this person with that person and seeing what sort of comes out of the mix.
Wow.
He was doing something with Randy, and he just said, hey, I got this young band. They're getting ready to start their first record. They're looking looking to write with different people and broaden their horizons and, you know, poke the creative nerves. And Randy was like, yeah, sure, I'm totally down. So he came down to our rehearsal place, and we just started jamming, and he goes, well, I got this little idea, and, you know, and it was funny because we went in the next day, we had, our publisher was MCA, and they had this nice little recording studio in town, and so we went over there with Randy, and it was funny because he put little colored pieces of tape on the piano so he could pump the piano. But when you listen to it, that's Randy playing the piano. He had to color mark the keys so that he would play in keys. So, you know, just little funny things like that, little interesting stories. And
yeah.
It all came about in like less than 48 hours, that track. So it was great.
How cool is that? So, this album, This Time It's Different, that we've been talking about, are you going to add any of these songs to the set once the album's released?
I'm sorry, are we going to what?
Add any of these songs that are on the album that's coming out August 20th?
Well, you know, I got to remember what the tracking order on that is. I know that there's some in the set that's probably on there.
Oh, okay.
We did want to dig deeper on this.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, a lot of times we just wait to start getting feedback from people.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, and then start giving them what they, you know, when they come out, you got to give them what they want to hear.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, you mentioned the name Earl Slick a couple times throughout the interview, and anybody doesn't know, he's a legendary guitar player, worked with David Bowie also over the years. So, how did
John Lennon, David Bowie,
How did you guys hook up with him, again, through a record company or management, or?
No, you know, Lauren knew him from some other projects back in the day. You know, this was like 91. Yeah, 91 I think it was. And Slick was in between gigs. He wasn't working with Bowie at the time. Bowie was kind of taking a hiatus. Yeah. And he was itching to play. And we just said, well, would you be interested? We're short a lead guitar player or guitar player. And he was like, yeah, you know. So we came down, and it was a great chemistry. And, you know, he dug our original material. And he had some song ideas, which was really helpful. And, you know, we were off and running. Yeah,
and I got to ask you, Ron, I'm assuming, like a lot of people, you were a David Bowie fan?
Oh, yeah, of course.
And any chance you're going to check out, you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I think in September they have a movie coming out about Bowie.
I can't wait to see that.
It looks really...
It's funny because this is, God, in the 80s, somebody asked if we wanted to go see The Elephant Man on Broadway, and it turns out it was David Bowie when he was in the role.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. We had great seats, and there's David Bowie just wearing like this diaper thing. No prosthetics, nothing to him, but just all the way he held his body. You totally believed he was disfigured. Yeah. And he was absolutely amazing in the role.
Yeah, you know, Bowie, besides being a gifted songwriter, musician in his own right, I gotta give him a shout out too for the fact that when everybody forgot about Peter Frampton, he gave him a second life to his career. You know.
Yeah.
So
no, he's always had great taste in music, and all the people he's worked with, from T-Rex to Ian Hunter, and, all these people. He's if you look on a lot of these records, obscurely he's played saxophone, or he's singing backgrounds, or Ian Hunter. You know, David Bowie did a lot of Ian Hunter's material on his own record. So there's all these little behind the scenes,
things,
little music fan, trivia bits. So it's great.
Yeah, and I hope you don't mind me asking, but I want the whole idea of doing an interview, besides promoting the CD, is to kind of let people know a little bit about the history of the band. And so with what you're talking about, how the band kind of fell apart, and what made you want to come back? Did you really miss it? Did somebody say, hey, you should get the band back?
We had gotten so burned and so dejected, and it was such a bloody mess, when everything kind of came off the rails with the lawyers and the finger pointing and all this shit, and it took all the fun out of the music.
Yeah, sure.
And it really just took a number of years of us to just kind of lick our wounds and decide that, we were all really close friends, so we were always still talking to each other.
Sure.
And then we just said, wouldn't it be fun to just get together and jam? And we did. And it was like, wow, man, this is so much fun. And then we just did a couple shows, and then we were like, well, I've got some song ideas, and it's just been going ever since now for like another 12 12 years
so
we've been doing this back together again.
Let me ask you, Ron, when you guys did that first reunion show and the people came out, what was it like? I mean, how surprised were you at the response you got at that first show of a number of people?
Oh, we were pretty blown away because, people don't know the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Sure.
They just, it's not like they notice you go away. They just get preoccupied.
There might even be people there that never knew you even broke up,
Yeah, exactly. They just are, like a lot of bands, we just kind of disappeared for a while. But
yeah,
so we did it. It's funny because at the time, I had to earn a living, so I've got a bunch of technical background in music production. So I was the production manager for a venue here, nice venue in LA called the Key Club.
I remember that place.
Yeah, it's up on the Sunset Strip. So I was a production manager there for like 9 years, and that's where we decided to do the reunion show. And we were just kind of shocked and really pleasantly surprised because the place was packed, and it was just great seeing so many old friends from back in the day, so to speak. That was our hometown.
Yeah, and Ron, there's no shame that. And what I mean by that is, I think it takes a big person to say, well, you know what, the band thing isn't working out right now, but like you said, I need to make a living, and in a way, you were still kind of in the music business, just you're working with other.
A quick funny story.
Yeah.
When I was working at the Key Club, LA Guns came into play.
Oh wow.
So Tracy comes in the back door and he sees me on stage and he's like, "Dude,
what are you doing?"
Because I did some work with Tracy. We were talking about putting a band together way back in the day after LA Guns had broken up for a while. But anyway, so Tracy's like, "So what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm the production manager here."
Oh wow.
He grabs me and gives me this hug and he's like, "Bro, hang in there, man.
Wow.
Don't give up on you." And I just started laughing. I'm like, "Tracy, I own my own home now because I've had a steady job. So don't feel bad for me because I know you're about to get in a van and go out to Phoenix and play at the Mason Jar." So it's like, I'm totally cool with the way my life is turning out. So, it's just kind of funny. People think that when you get on MTV, it's like all of a sudden you're rich and you're famous, and it's like, the furthest thing, you got to sell mega millions before you really start to make a living. And once you stop selling records, man, it all disappears. So
I mean, you even look like at a band like Warrant that was signed to Columbia. They were all over MTV. And the band was maybe loaded back in the day, but that money all went, and now they're doing kind of weekend gigs, and like you said, the guys even in Warrant, they got day jobs and they got to work their schedule around and stuff.
That's the way we are, and it's funny because speaking of Tracy, it's like talking to him, and it's like he's a band that sold like I think a total of like 7 or 8 million records, but the reality is what people don't know is that they never saw a dime. And then you look at a band like because all the money went to tour buses. The label puts out all this money on your behalf, promotion and lawsuits and all this stuff. And when the accounting comes in, it's like, wow, we made like $9,000, and it's like, so that's the reason why these bands have to go out on tour, because that's really where they make their money. And LA Guns is the thing with that is, I mean, how many labels were they on? So there's that. Oh yeah, no, and it's gone through a bunch of personnel changes over the years. And there's even 2 versions of the band. And so that gets a little confusing when splitting the publishing, like who gets what. But And the other thing I would think too, being a band that it was around in the late '80s, and then you guys break up for a while and come back. By the time you get back together, the model for the music industry has really changed. I mean, like I said, there's a good portion of bands, they just live on a catalog of music. They're not any, nobody's buying CDs. We're not gonna bother writing new songs. No, and that's the thing. Over the last 5-6 years, one of the big things that we're keeping, it's like prompted like the post I made today. Back when the whole music industry imploded, the good thing is what opened up was people that released music on the internet. And so we were making, we basically funded all of our touring, like buying the flights and pre-booking the hotels. From CD sales and streaming, not streaming, but MP3 sales on iTunes and all this stuff. And now it's streaming that is all dried up. So we would make good revenue every year just from, shipping out CDs and, checks coming in from iTunes and all these other digital outlets. And now that's all gone. So it makes it even harder for a lot of these bands. And, the other thing is, it's one thing to go out there and struggle when you're in your 20s, 30s, But when you start getting up to 50 years old, you got to be an adult. You got bills to pay and families to feed, and it makes it really difficult for a lot of guys to be able to get out there on the road and do it.
And then I would think too, for a band like Little Caesar, since you've gone back together, though, it sounds like, in spite of everything, seems like the fan base has remained pretty loyal.
Yes, very much so. And the thing is, it's like we were always a very down-to-earth, blue-collar, working-class band. People used to think we were the roadies when we loaded into shows because our stage clothes and our street clothes were the same thing.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is that when social media started taking off and, a lot of bands kept trying to create this impression that they were rock stars living this glamorous life. I had no desire or energy to try to create some false impressions. The fact that we're working day jobs or that, but that sort of honesty and connectedness to the fans. And again, we're not Motley Crue, so it's easy for us to stay connected to a much smaller group of people than a band like, Def Leppard or Motley Crue. But it's really served us well to be honest and down to earth and connected to people, because some of our best friends, some of our longest relationships have come about from meeting people at shows when we go out there to shake hands and to thank people.
And who have been some of your favorite bands that you guys got to go on the road with and open for?
Well, Kiss was interesting. I was working with Gene Simmons was an eye-opener, and sort of learned a lot. Also, a lot of comedy.
He seems like a cool guy. Yeah, I had a chance to interview him. He seems like a down-to-earth guy.
Yes, but he's a one of a kind. I mean, this is a guy that basically invented music merchandising.
Yeah.
He had dolls and action figures and stuff.
I mean, they actually,
well before so many other bands saw all the potential.
And besides, like even designing their makeup and that, I mean, Gene even, got the brains to like to copyright each of the makeup designs, and he owns all that. Him and Paul.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of people don't know that. Like Gene Simmons, when we were out on tour with him, he was Liza Minnelli's business manager.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And Gene would be proud to say that he's never, at the time, had never taken a day of vacation in his life.
Wow.
He works every day.
Oh, I believe it.
And finally he slowed down with Shannon and they started to take vacations. But, never took a drink, never did a drug, just completely business-oriented and money-oriented. And has a real talent for it, and is really smart about it.
And you guys, that was the hottest.
Just ask him; he'll tell you.
Oh, sure. And you guys, that was the Hot in the Shade tour when Eric Carr was still alive, right?
Correct. And it was right before Eric, passed away from cancer.
And do you have any memories of him? Did you get a chance to hang out with him at all?
Yes, because I actually wound up becoming very good friends with another guy that passed away recently, a guy named Gary Corbin.
Oh, I remember keyboard. Wow, recently.
Yeah, keyboard player, and at the time he was supplementing, their background vocals and Paul's rhythm guitar part from his keyboard off stage. Nobody saw him for Kiss. And we became really close friends, and he was really close with Eric. So I started to hang out with Eric, and he's just a sweetheart of a guy. And Eric is, like me, originally from New York. So, we all hit it off really good. And Eric is not really, he doesn't have that bombastic personality like Gene and Paul has. He was a little bit more sort of down to earth. Than just a regular guy.
That's what everybody says about him. And who else did that for Kiss, like on the Revenge tour, is, because I recently interviewed him, was Derek Sherinian, and he would do the background keys. Like, if you listen to Kiss Alive 3, he's on that.
I did some work with Derek. Me, Derek, T-Bone Caradonna, who played bass with Alice Cooper back in the day, and Zach Wilde. We were writing songs together and doing demos at that same studio I worked with Randy Bachman, the MCA.
Wow.
And those were fun sessions and really good times. This is back when Zach was trying to get in touch with his southern rock side, you know.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I remember. I mean, I can still picture Zach Wilde when he first joined Ozzy's band when he was like 19 years old. Looked like a pretty boy rocker compared to what he looks like now. Totally opposite, you know.
Yes. And Zach has this huge love for like southern rock, like Allman Brothers. And,
oh yeah,
so he did that Pride and Glory project.
That's what I was gonna say. I love that Pride and Glory album.
Yeah. So that's really so much in his roots and his soul. So we all hit it off great, and it was a lot of fun writing those songs back in the day.
And did you guys ever have any plans to do anything with that, or do you think it'll ever see the light of day?
No, it's like there were a bunch of things that we never finished and never really got finalized in the recording, so it's really not releasable.
Oh, wow.
But what was nice about it was making the friendships.
Oh, sure. So, yeah. And,
because Zach is a really, especially now that he's sober.
Yeah.
He's a really sweet, down-to-earth guy.
From what I understand, the alcohol almost killed him. He had to quit, but
yeah, he was one of those binge drinkers. He would tell you the same.
Yeah.
Where and all of a sudden he would go, be a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of guy, and he finally, but it just shows you his character. He's still with Barbara Ann, his wife.
Yeah.
And. He's a really good guy, but like so many people, when the alcohol got in the way, it started to mess up his life. And fortunately for him, he turned it all around. So I was
gonna say, fortunately, God was with him in a way, because I mean, maybe it happened just in time.
Yes, well, that's when it always happens. It's either too late or just in time.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask you,
the way it goes with that stuff.
You also got a chance. Was it on the correct me if I'm wrong, I think on Dr. Feel Good tour you got to tour with Motley Crue too?
No, we never played with Motley Crue.
Okay, that's somebody else.
Yeah, no, we never had that blessing to get out there and watch those guys do what they do. But we did. I mean, like, oddly enough, I got up. We did some shows with Bryan Adams, of all people.
Wow, what was that like?
It was great.
Yeah.
At the time, Bryan was kind of quietly working with Bob Rock because Mutt Lange was taking so long doing this record.
Yeah.
And so we got to meet him, and we were working at Little Mountain when he was doing some stuff at Little Mountain. And he's like, well, why don't you guys, I'm doing a show at BC Place, which is like the arena up in Vancouver. And it's like, come out and open for us. And I got to do a duet with him with Stand By Me, the old Benny King song.
Oh, wow.
And it was just great. So it's a great memory. And he's a great singer and a great songwriter.
I mean, people forget Bryan Adams was a rocker back in the day, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but he co-wrote with Gene Simmons War Machine. Yeah.
Brian's a great songwriter, really talented.
And then,
we did some shows with George Thorogood.
Oh, wow. I can see that. Wow. Yeah.
And that was right in our wheelhouse, beer infused rock and roll.
There you go. And
oddly enough, we did some shows with Jane's Addiction. We went on a little tour with them. That was kind of weird.
I bet. Interesting. Probably the weirdest tour I ever heard of. I was interviewing one of the guys, I think, from the Outlaws, and he was telling me that back in the day, the Outlaws did a tour, and I think they called it the Black and Blue tour. Something he said, and the Outlaws were opening up for Black Sabbath when Ronnie James Dio was in the band, like around 1980.
Wow, yeah, that's a pretty wide field of musical genres together on one stage for a night.
Yeah. And Ron, the last thing I want to ask you about, because you mentioned Deco Entertainment that this is being released on, and I got to tell you, from my own experience working with this label, it seems like they're a great little label, and what I love most about the label is not just the great roster of artists, but they really promote the hell out of their bands and their new releases and stuff. And so I think you're on a great label. I got to ask, did they come to you, or did you go to...
A manager, a guy named Jeff Keller that we worked with, about 12 years ago. We rekindled the relationship, and Jeff has a few artists that are on Deco, so he asked if we'd be interested in doing re-releases, and we struck up a conversation, and I totally agree with you, because we've been on several labels since back in the day, and by far, just a really great, committed, detail-oriented, enthusiastic, supportive group of folks over there at Deco, and they've been just so great to us, helping us get artwork together. And unlike so many other companies, everything they say they're going to do, they do.
And then they produce that physical product as well, not just digitally.
No, they've got this great thing with WIA, Cargo, and they're just like this great little boutique label, and we've just been really thrilled to work with them because they just put their heart and soul behind everything that we've done.
Yeah.
And they're just really responsive, and it's really a breath of fresh air after a lot of the other people we worked with, over the last bunch of releases. So
hopefully it'll work. Great. Hopefully it'll work out, because another guy I know that's on the label is Carmine A Piece, and he had this album Guitar Zeus came out years ago in Japan, and it never really got the proper push in the U.S. and it's finally, I think, on a label that they really kind of pushed that, and people are checking it out.
Oh, good.
And then they also got
he's a legend.
Yeah. They also got the Bouchard brothers from Blue Oyster Cult, so they got a lot of great people on the label. And I guess my final question for you is, so you got this time it's different. It's coming out the re-release of that on August 26th. Now with the Deco deal, is that also a deal for new music? And can we expect a little?
Yeah, they've asked us if we have new music, and it's just so weird with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
We've been trying to just keep the wheels moving.
Yeah.
And I know that collectively we all have a bunch of song ideas, but when every other week somebody's getting sick or their kid got sick, so now we got to isolate. It's just been slow moving. But as soon as we're back from this year, we're off to Europe for a month.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as we get back, we're going to, especially because our producer, he was down for about a year rebuilding his studio, and that's going to be up and running by the time we get back. So definitely. And so we're going to talk to Deco about, taking the new music and putting that out there too.
Well, and you mentioned this album we've been talking about. This time it's different. You said this is a lot of stuff that was in the so-called vault. Now, Kiss is another one band that they got a ton of this vault that I hear. It's a ton of unreleased stuff. You guys got a lot of unreleased stuff?
We don't. That's pretty much, this time it's different. It's pretty much the full reign of that stuff.
Wow.
So
yeah.
There's really nothing else to pick from. So that's why it's all going to be new compositions.
Yeah, well, that's because again, I think this is a nice release in that effort, because it'll tie fans over until they do get a new Little Caesar album.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And I was curious. I love the name Little Caesar. I was kind of curious. When you guys came up with that name, did you ever get because of the pizza chain? Do you ever have any issue with that?
Oh, we caught so much shit. I mean, it's sort of we always laugh. It's like.
I guess
should have been indication of things to come.
I mean, did they ever
I came up with that name, and I named it after the 1930s gangster film with Edward G. Robinson.
Oh wow!
And I just love the name because Caesar's big, but Little is small.
Yeah.
We lived in California. We didn't know there was a national pizza chain with the name Little Caesar.
Oh yeah, so sure.
We, about 2 weeks before the record comes out, Jimmy Iman says, they got all that legal stuff worked out with the pizza chain. We're like, what are you talking about?
Okay, yeah.
He's like, oh, well, Geffen told me that there's this big pizza chain in, the Midwest and down in the South. And we're like, well, why didn't somebody tell us how we're to change the name? And, and he's like, well, whatever, the artwork's done, just go with it. Don't worry about it.
In a way, see, that's why I was asking. I never heard that story, but I was kind of thinking myself, I bet, the pizza company probably threatened to sue you guys, and I'm like, it's kind of cool that they did, and I just said, no, let them keep a name.
It's just funny because it's, as the lawyer said, well, it's two different, there won't be any confusion, it's two totally different types of business.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not the point.
Yeah.
So, whatever, you got to be able to laugh at yourself.
Well, that it's been great talking to you, Ron. As you can tell, I'm a fan that's followed your career, and so I really was honored to talk to you today. And if you're happy with the way the interview came out today, I'd like to encourage you. Let's keep in touch, and anytime you have anything to promote, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to do it again. And like I said, the interview, I'm planning to post it next week, so I will let ship new as soon as it goes up. So thanks for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for getting the word out.
Okay, you take care, buddy.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine